But I'm here to talk about the kind what I'm also been doing and which is totally related. But yeah, so I wrote this book called Reclaiming Your Community. You don't have to move out of your neighborhood to live in a better one. And what I did was I actually put my and it's actually we came out in 2022. Yeah, 2022. And it's now a national bestseller, which makes me very happy. Yeah, so folks actually use what we talk about in this book. And I'm actually, I'm a consultant as well, so I work with whether they're organizations and small businesses to like really, and even municipalities to help them figure out like how do they do what we know to be true. Not that it's a silver bullet, but it is absolutely something that needs to happen in the communities that I talk about. When those institutions that were literally preying on folks in those neighborhoods, because we didn't believe in our community. We didn't believe in the value, that it had any real value. That the second somebody would be like, oh, we can take your house off your hands, people would be like, this thing, and that's why we literally, that is one of the reasons, like, especially between 2008 and like 2020, something like that, the amount of, in particular, Black wealth that we've lost, not because somebody took it, because we sold it early and cheap. Okay? I know that's not pretty to hear, but we have to like understand that. But that's one of the reasons why this talent retention strategy is something that we so desperately want to be working on more. Because in what it is literally the kind of things that make people just give their own neighborhoods a second look so that they could feel like they can reinvest in it. Maybe it is keeping grandma's house. Maybe it is starting a business in your neighborhood. Maybe it is actually trying to develop on your own. Maybe it is just like supporting one locally owned business in those neighborhoods. It could be any of those things, and there's an option to it, but it includes, having the kind of high quality, built and natural environment that make people feel like they belong in it. And so remember that that crack house that I used to walk by? Well, this was one of our early projects. This was the Boogie Down Grind Cafe. It is a curated hip hop, themed experience, because of all you know, hip hop was born in the South Bronx. You're welcome. And so it's all about creating that kind of space. And so it's kind of like an urban Cracker Barrel. It's like covered with like classic hip hop posters and the little, what they call the flyers that people would print out on mimeograph machines. Like y'all young people have no idea what that meant. And they'd like post them up, and that's where the jams would happen. I barely remember it, but it was really fun. And so now the space is used for things like, anything from open mics, to book readings, all sorts of fun stuff like that. We have a blast in it. But I got to tell you, just because, and I find it really hilarious because there's some folks, I think, definitely within the social justice world, and even philanthropy, who look at things like, again, if something's different, like a cafe, this has got to be like a harbinger of gentrification, which I find hilarious because when you think about coffee, first of all, it comes from the blackest and brownest parts of this planet. And it is literally the blackest beverage on the planet, seriously. And it's just like, when did it become like this thing that only white guys with like ironic glasses and big beards, can do? And I'm just like, nah, this is, we all drink coffee, let's stop it. But anyway, that's like the kind of crazy thing that makes people go like, we're gonna do something that it's gotta be bad. And so we were actually protested, by a group, which was really adorable. And some of their artwork was actually kind of nice, I have to admit. They made some really, they're in the book, the pictures of like caricatures of me, which I thought they were talented. But anyway, that's me. I'm selling the Bronx out one coffee at a time. I'm evil, blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of crazy because, and it's just like, first of all, I hope nobody's ever protested. It is not pleasant. It is not pleasant. But what was so ironic was that literally, the day we were protested was the day that we protested because like another social justice group in the neighborhood literally invited other folks to participate, like another little group to participate in it. And because they felt like I was stealing from the neighborhood. And it was just like, what? But what the really ironic part was that we had just arranged to have a meeting with someone who had built funds, literally giving 0% interest loans to homeowners who are in danger of losing their homes, and also to small businesses who wanted to actually start peaceful businesses in the Bronx. And so that was the irony of it. And it was just like, did that just happen? I had 40 people inside my cafe trying to hear what was going on and actually get some paper. And like 10 people outside, with banners, like, it was just sad. And so, but to be honest, I was like, well, does this mean that people in my neighborhood are gonna start hating me? Or think that like the lies that they wrote on the back of their caricature of me, that I'm stealing from these people, I'm trying to get their money, are they gonna think that's true? But I gotta tell you, my community got it. Because literally the next day, people who had never been in that cafe, for whatever reason, were just like, yo, I saw that. I don't even like coffee, but give me some. And I was just like, okay. I was like, all right, my brother, this is what I'm talking about. So it was beautiful. But this is another really good story, because this woman here was one of the first investors, local investors in our community. She's from Honduras, her husband's Jamaican. They were literally the first investors within our neighborhood, and we actually do a revenue share right now. So that's what people in our communities actually try to do when we start in the throes of actually building the capacity for us to do this work. But this is the real reason why I actually was even born. This is my daddy, and he was a Pullman porter, and this line, the line that ran under this station, was his line, and there was hope. Yeah, and he wanted desperately to live in an area that was near his line, his main line. He wouldn't have to go all the way down to Penn Station. He could walk home. But they never reopened Rail Station, but he was able to convince a white family in the neighborhood back in the early 1940s to sell that big old black man his home for cash. He won $15,000 in a horse race in California. He carried that money in a satchel on a train, cross country, and was just like, because back then it was even harder than it is now for a black person to get a mortgage, and found this family who was willing to sell. So thank you, Pop. I appreciate you, Daddy. But all that to say is that I like to close my talks on this quote. It follows me, because I feel like it is that level of urgency that I bring to my work, both as a consultant but also as a developer, which is like, we should be really impatient for what passes for development in our community. Because if Dr. King could be sitting in a jail, this is part of the letter from a Birmingham jail, when he had a bunch of white faith-based leaders telling him, like, why don't you chill on this stuff, chill on this integration stuff, it's like, and he's like, you need to understand my impatience, and all of them. So that's what this is about, because the bottom line is, we can continue, to take little baby steps, or just pat ourselves on the back for little things that do change. But again, if we're not really thinking about how do we redevelop our communities in ways that support us in order to create the value that stays with us, then what are we doing? Because we can, and I'm not saying that talent retention is the only thing that's gonna save us, but I know that if we don't do it, starting in our own communities, we're gonna have some problems. Oh, just a continuation of what we have right now. But otherwise, what we wanna show is that we don't have to move out of our neighborhood in order to live in better ones. That's it. Thank you so much.